Welcome to the Rant Live. Oh, hey. Welcome to the Rant, everybody. I'm John Strong, or as some people know me, John Furlise. And that over there is Evan Altman. Oh, I'm sorry, over there.
Hello.
See, look. Hey, look. You know something cool we can do? We can like, bloop,
Whoop.
Hey,
now I'm on the
hey-ho.
other side. This is for those of you who are consuming this in podcast form. I apologize, but John is flipping our images back and forth on the screen just to give you the visual that you can't otherwise get. From those who are watching either the live or the replay on YouTube. So
I would argue that that was actually a little bit more exciting than the Bears game last night on Monday Night Football.
Pretty much anything we could. When you first came on, you had a blank screen, and I would have preferred to have watched that for 3 hours last night than what I saw. So
yeah,
it wasn't great.
I'm not even sure where to start. Let's start with the weather. So how is the weather in Indianapolis? Evan is in Indianapolis. I am in Phoenix, Arizona. Evan, how's the weather there?
You know what? I haven't been outside today. But it is sunny, and it says it's 37, so it's cooled off considerably from where we were. High of 41, but it's sunny, and we're supposed to be in the 60s later this week, so that would be nice.
Well, that's nice. It sounds
Had
good.
a front blow through.
I see you're growing your facial hair back. Are you committed to the Fu Manchu? Are you growing the full beard? What's happening?
Well, it's No Shave November, and so while I have zero actual altruistic notion of this, I think the idea of it is just sort of like, what are you trying to raise money or raise awareness, Jennifer? Whether it be for cancer awareness, things like that. I think that's kind of where some of this stuff started for me. The rising positivity rates in the area mean that I have been told just keep on working from home. And
by positivity rates, you don't mean like people's,
not people feeling good
overview of life.
In fact, it's quite the opposite. But thankfully, and what's interesting is I think, and of course, I'm sure this might not be the case everywhere. It seems like there's a lot more of the rural areas that are climbing now because a lot of the metro spots kind of got smarter about it. And I think there's maybe some, there could be some political stuff involved in that as well. But I think a lot of people kind of like legitimately thought that, hey, this pandemic's done once the election's over. And, that kind of isn't the case. But anyway, the point being,
we could talk about that all afternoon.
I have nothing to do. I don't need to keep up appearances literally other than things like this, and nobody gives a shit what I look like here anyway. So so I'm just kind of doing that, and I've gotten past. We're deep enough in the month. I've gotten past the like itchy, uncomfortable stage. So we'll see what happens. I don't know if it'll be a year like last time, but it'll be a little while.
Okay, good. Well, just to let you know, the weather here in Phoenix is delightful. So I haven't seen a cloud in, I don't know, quite a long time. And I think it's going to be like 80 something, 82, 83 and sunny here. So now that we got that positivity out of the way, let's talk about the Bears, who last night lost their fourth straight game. And I tell you, I've got this sheet of paper here that I've been writing down all sorts of things on. And the one conclusion that I definitely have come to in regards to the Bears is that Nick Foles is a standard issue backup quarterback. And he will never be anything more than a standard issue backup quarterback who, when put in the right situation, the right game with the right perfect game plan, he can not screw it up. But short of anything perfect from game planning perspective, and especially with the Bears offensive line, you are just not going to get anything special from Nick Foles. And that is a fact.
Yeah. I think what we saw, especially early, and so I was, if people are watching on here and I was a little distracted earlier, I had just published something immediately prior to this. And it was kind of similar to one of my recent Cubs pieces where I basically just rage wrote the entire time.
Feels good to do that sometimes.
It does, and especially after last night's game. I mean, just let it fly. But but there were more like even at and here's the, I'm not saying I didn't realize this earlier, but if you ever thought, that, maybe Foles can get this done. There was the play early on, third and 7, 3rd and 8, something like that. Anthony Miller coming across the middle. Foles absolutely had a clean pocket, stepped up, threw it up and behind. Now, again, it's funny because you get on Twitter and everybody's like, "Oh, you got to catch that," and then I'm like, "Yeah,
I mean, 100% on Nick Foles."
Yeah, it absolutely was, because Miller was wide open. All you've got to do is throw it in front of him. He's got an easy gain of 15 to 20 yards. Now, should Miller come down with that catch? Absolutely, and I think that's one of the things that we see. Like, does Allen Robinson come down with that? Probably. Do we? And we saw, and that was what's funny. So I'll get back to my point, but it was, late in the game, Steve Levy on Monday Night Football was like, "Oh, I'll never say anybody's out of it after watching the end of that Cardinals game."
I can't believe he brought that in.
Fuck on, dude. You're talking about
Kyler Murray,
the Bills, Kyler Murray,
DeAndre Hopkins,
But then even on the other side, Buffalo has a decent young quarterback, and Stephon freaking Diggs. Like that, you cannot take elite level receivers and compare what the Bears have, right? Even with what is it? Josh Allen is the quarterback I'm thinking of. So both quarterbacks are far superior to Nick Foles. Both receivers far superior to Anthony Miller. Now, the Bears do, and at the time, then it was, then Foles gets hurt and it didn't matter. But there was another play also to Miller late in the game where the Bears went for it on 4th. And again,
and they had
Foles
to. It was
had
like
Miller
under 2 minutes.
He overthrew him. Yeah. Now, did it hit him in the hands? Could he have come down with that? Possibly. Yeah. Would an elite receiver have been able to do it? It still would have been a tough catch, right? So I'm not saying like, oh, he should have made that. That's 99 out of 100. Absolutely not. But poor throws. And the first one was the worst to me. I mean, that is a throw that an NFL quarterback has to make. Absolutely has to make. And that's the one that ended up going off his hands, going to Harrison Smith. There was another play where Foles floated one across the middle that, thank God, didn't get caught or picked off. Also in Smith's direction, that one he laid out and almost got Allen Robinson just smashed because he just floated across the middle. And then there was another one in the end zone where he did get hit on the arm. But also in Smith's direction, there's a lot of these passes going across the middle that are not, like, you just don't see when you're watching really elite quarterback play. And he did make a really nice, I think it was a pass. There was one to Cordero Patterson when on one of the times, it was really weird when the Bears kind of are moving the ball well. It was a nice little pass to Patterson on the right sideline that was up and out. You got a lanky receiver, and it was in a spot where only he could catch it. But more often than not, Foles is just kind of putting it in a general area. You're not seeing those pinpoint, like the pass, and Kirk Cousins is the douchiest, nerdiest dude in the world. But when he's on his game, he can actually make throws. And when you have a really good receiver like Thielen, the one-hand grab he made, that ball was put in a spot where it still required a great catch, but Thielen only could make that catch. There's no way the defender could have gotten to it because he put it right on the dude's hip and Thielen brought it in. Those are kind of the differences that you see. Those things cannot happen. You cannot, when you are such a bad team as what the Bears are, you have to execute offensively. Yes, you have to execute. And that's the issue. And we talk about the play calling. And for most of the first half, despite the fact that they only scored 2 field goals because they suck ass, and that's the 20th game in the last 2.5 years now, 42 games, 20th time they have not scored a touchdown in the first half, by the way, which is awesome. The play calling, at least it looked like they were doing things. They were kind of shifting the pocket a little bit. They were throwing some different change of pace type things, and it seemed like the cadence was moving better than what we've seen under Nagy. And incredibly, Bill Lazor was up in the booth looking down from above instead of being on the sideline, which he normally is, which we've talked about on here is a problem with Nagy. But it doesn't matter what the play calls are when your personnel is not good and when your execution is trash. It doesn't matter. You can make the best play calls in the world. They can't execute. And they showed that time and again last night, and it got even worse in the second half, and it just fell apart. So there's my rant for the day.
And I agree. I mean, the first half of the game wasn't terrible, actually. I mean, they did move the ball. I mean, they threw an interception. That didn't help anything. But they were moving the ball. They were doing okay. I mean, Their first drive was the interception, the throw to Anthony Miller. The second drive, they got 5 first downs, ended with the field goal. They were in the red zone, so that was disappointing the way that ended. The third drive, they got 2 first downs. So 7 of their 10 first downs they got in 2 drives. But then something happened, and I'll tell you, whatever goes on in the locker room at halftime with the Bears, that needs to be the focus, because when they come out in the second half, they just look like the worst team in the NFL offensively.
And they are offensively. They are.
They got 2 first downs in the second half, and their first down didn't come until there was about 2 minutes left in the game. And it's like, that's just incredible. I mean, to think about in a pro football team can go nearly an entire half without getting a first down. I mean, it's just like they punt, touchdown on the kickoff, and then 5 possessions that ended in a punt.
Yeah, and so again, they are still the worst, and the only reason is they average 1.4 points in the third quarter. And the only reason it's that high, which is twice as high as it really is because of that Patterson return touchdown coming out of the second half, or coming out of the first half, out of halftime. They've scored 1 offensive touchdown, 7 total points by the offense in 10 games in the third quarter, which is insanely bad and completely unacceptable. And I think we say this every show, at least I do. That to me is the sign that the coaching is in over their heads. Yeah. And that's what really worries me.
Because you're just not making any adjustment.
You give Matt LaFleur, right. You get Matt LaFleur and Aaron Rodgers time to game plan and set some stuff up. They're going to be able to beat you. I am not confident in any way, shape, or form that getting the bye and having 2 weeks before facing the Packers is actually an advantage for the Bears. I do not believe that. I believe that is a disadvantage.
It's like halftime. You'd think at half you'd be able to go in and make adjustments.
It's a long halftime. They basically what they do in halftime is, it looks like, I mean, I could do a better job if I went and took a shit in a waffle iron and just let it sit there, and then I just plop that thing out for the second half. That's what this team is.
The image you've just created in my mind is so 2020.
Yeah, it's beyond bad. Like I don't understand. I mean, and the thing is, and this is indicative, that's a season-long thing. But how many times I'm looking at this, everyone watching that game, it's third down, the Vikings are going to blitz. Have a hot receiver, have somebody, have an outlet, do something. Never. It's like, you've got a shitty offensive line. They're coming after you, and they never figured it out. They never even looked to scheme against it.
Under pressure, Nick Foles completed 30%, 3 of 10 passes under pressure. He completed 75% of his passes with no pressure, and he only completed 1 pass when being blitzed. And so, under pressure last night, Nick Foles was absolutely terrible. And I wonder if they took away the ability for Nick Foles to audible out of certain situations. It kind of felt like it. It kind of felt like they were just going with whatever the play was called, because there was no versatility whatsoever. It just didn't seem like there was any adjustments being made during the game while it was going on.
But that's the thing, and that's the part that bothers me more than anything, is literally all of us sitting on our couches, right? And there's frequently, I look at things and I'm like, hey, we're seeing things differently, we're being the armchair experts or whatever. But everybody knew the blitz was coming. Everyone knew it was coming, and it appeared as though they failed to adjust to that time and time again. And you could see it. And third down, it was like, if I'm the Vikings, I'm licking my chops. I'm like, they got no idea what we're doing. And it felt like playing Madden and I haven't played that in a long time, but when I play the football video games, I play against my brother or whatever, and I just dial up a blitz every damn time. I'm just like, I'm going, and you watched it last night, you're like, how can they not figure this out? It felt, actually, I want to take you back to Tecmo Bowl, and what it felt like was that you had like 4 plays you can run. And the Vikings every time were just picking the right play, and the Bears are like, well, shit, they're not going to do it again this time. Let's try it again. Like, no.
Yeah, it's like they were playing the odds.
Yeah, stop playing into their hands. In their favor. They're like, oh, Mike Zimmer's got this. No, it's not that Zimmer was dialing it up right. It's just the Bears were doing nothing to counter any of it. Not that they could, because the offensive line is beat up. It was, and again, even when they did have situations where Foles did have either maybe not a clean pocket, but was able to step up and the pressure came behind, he couldn't deliver the ball on target more often than not, or at least not enough consistently. You'd see him run off, and here, how many times do we see this? You run off a few positive yardage plays, you pick up a couple first downs, and then completely sputter. And just, let's do a little smoke route. Whoop. Oh, -2-yard pass. Oh, here's this one. Oh, nope, that was incomplete. All right, now it's 3rd and long. Got another one that didn't fall. It didn't. At no point, especially like I said, coming out of the first half, I was like, hey, you know what? Only 6 points, 2 field goals.
Felt okay.
That's not great, but it felt like they.
Or Daryl Patterson runs the ball back for a touchdown, 104-yard touchdown. So you're feeling really good,
right? And then it fell apart like immediately.
Which is
from
an
that
understatement.
It just but it didn't. The feel of that first half, it looked like the offense was trying to do some things to fit the personnel.
It felt like it was like one play away from, kind of really getting into a solid rhythm.
1 or 2 plays might have been, and our frequent viewer here, Phoenix Night Flame, I think, again, he mentions, or they, I don't want to assume gender, at least 4 bad throws from Foles. Right. And over the course of a game, 4 bad throws doesn't seem like a lot. But really, when you look at a game that was as tight as this one was, that was closely contested, it's
20% of your throws.
And they're not, and we're not talking about missing by 10 feet, right? I mean, you put one, again, you a foot lower or a foot more to the left on that crossing route, the little one to Miller we were talking about, that goes in there. You don't overthrow them as much on that 4th down. There's a touchdown, or at least, you got 1st and goal. So there's little things that could have, but that's where, again, if your game is predicated around having to be perfect on each of these, you've got no chance. And it just, what felt in the first half like one of those things where you're like, hey, if they can do that again and just get a little break here or there. The second half, there wasn't any of that. At no point did you sit there feeling like, oh yeah, this offense is totally in rhythm. It was the opposite. It was just horrible.
I mean, I felt like it was really close in the first half, though. But yeah, you're right. In the second half, it was just like, it's terrible. The only thing that I can conclude coming out of this game with 100% certainty is that Nick Foles should not be the starting quarterback anymore. And listen, I was fine when they made the change to Nick Foles because, we know Mitch has struggled. He definitely struggled last year. And but what I've seen from Nick Foles, I mean, the guy is the slowest runner I've ever seen in my life. I mean, it's painful when he tries to run.
I want to see him in a foot race with Victor Caratini and Anthony Rizzo. That's what I want to see.
They would crush him.
That'd be so hilarious. And I mean, Foles looks like a dude who should be able to move a little bit.
He doesn't look like he would be that slow.
Right. God. I mean, there's this weird juxtaposition there. Like, I'm watching some of these other dudes. I'm like, I mean, Kirk Cousins is the goofiest looking son of a bitch alive, but he was able to run for a first. Like, Foles is like, I don't know. Like, we're talking Drew Bledsoe statuesque. Like, the Statue of David, if you go to Florence and visit, like, that thing is more mobile than Nick, and it doesn't move at all. But that's, other than
big
hanging dong,
piece of granite.
Yeah. I mean, it's like, I don't want to see Foles naked, but which I guess would be the naked bootleg. We can actually tie that back into something there. But
you and your visuals.
I know, man. I'm sorry, but he can't move. He can't.
He is like a sack of wet potatoes.
Yeah, forward and backwards. I can step up 2 steps
like
in the pocket.
Couple steps.
Yeah, and that's about it. There is zero lateral movement. And again, I don't know if that's just what's going on there. But like you said, as much as there's no way in hell Mitchell Trubisky is the answer, if nothing else, with as bad as the offensive line is, and as much as other teams are, damn well they're going to keep, because they're just looking at it like, oh, hell yeah. Like I said, those edge rushers, even the interior guys, they're all licking their chops because they know damn well that they're going to be able to blow up past Rashad Coward and anybody else the Bears put in there. You need a guy who can at least escape. Because right now, Foles doesn't even have the threat of like, okay, nobody's open. I can step up and gain a couple yards. At least with Trubisky, his legs can maybe, except the last time he tried to run the ball, he jacked up his shoulder. So who knows? It's beyond me at this point.
It is baffling. I want to go a little off script. I didn't have this kind of as part of the whole, our whole thing here, but Robert Quinn is perhaps the worst signing in the history of the NFL. He did nothing last night. He had one quarterback hit, no tackles. I don't even know how many plays he was in on. I'm trying to find that out, but he is terrible.
Yeah, and
literally.
This is what's interesting, and I wrote about that a little bit. Oddly enough, he actually grades out not well by any stretch, but he's overall in terms of among edge rushers, he's like 55th rated according to Pro Football Focus. He's number 55 overall in terms of overall defense. And then if you look at the pass rush, he's like 59th, or maybe it's vice versa. Either way, now not great when you consider that there are only 32 teams, and depending on how many, so that's out of 182. So he's in the upper third, right? Not good, but the fact is, he is on a 5-year, $70 million contract with $30 million guaranteed. That's what makes it a problem. If this is a guy who you had who was only making, who's on kind of a minimum deal, and you would sign him to like $1 million or $2 million, you'd be like, okay, that's fine. But it's $70 million, right? Again, 30 of that's guaranteed, and that's really in the NFL. That's what really matters. That is completely unacceptable production. I mean, he's the invisible man. How many times do you hear about him being mentioned? Maybe the once, right? You get a quarterback hit, that's it, and then he's just gone. Like, he's not even there. Like, at least I feel like when Khalil Mack, a lot of times they're not calling his name, but you're watching a play, you're like, okay, he's drawing a double team out on the outside, or he's being absolutely held by some guy and never flagged for it, and just absolutely getting just obliterated. But he's taking some people out, and he's again creating a bigger gap through which we saw Roquan Smith looked really good last night, was able to get through a lot. He's doing something. Quinn just feels like a waste of space, and that's something again on which, to me, I equate it to Jimmy Graham, who to whom Pace gave a really big contract. Now, Graham has been okay. I think we can all agree that he's been a better player this year, relatively speaking, than Quinn. But those are both guys from whom you could get easily equivalent production for a hell of a lot less money. And that's, to me, that's the problem, is you've got all these dudes. Like, yeah, you can find some diamonds in the rough here and there, but they've overpaid for these big names, former big names, right? Because I think both of them there, we could look at that. Like, Quinn used to be a stud. Graham used to be a stud. They're not anymore. This is not who they are. And yet the Bears have overpaid for them simply to kind of be these ancillary pieces, and it's just not working.
Well, which, to the point in your article, really hampers the Bears going into next season, because the salary cap is going to drop way down, because it's based on a formula that looks at revenues, total NFL revenues. And so the salary cap is going to drop for the Bear, I don't know, probably about $20 million or something like that.
It's, the report right now, the estimate is from $200 million to $175. So, and the Bears are about $10 million under, but they've got to cut $15 million basically just to be at it, is really what we're looking at.
Which is a problem. Which is a problem when you've got Robert Quinn, and which is a problem when you've got Jimmy Graham. And so it's some of that's guaranteed money. So that's going to make for an interesting off season. It's which isn't going to necessarily be a good off season. Particularly unless they can find a way to trade away some of this dead money that's sitting there,
But so it means, Allen Robinson's gone, right? There's a reason they didn't extend him, basically because they can't afford him. And they probably won't even franchise him, even though, so he's making, but here's the problem. They got him on a really good deal because he was hurt before they got him, right? And he kind of was just still working back that first season, but he's making $14 million a year. Even at a lower cap number, the wide receiver hit figures to be about 16 million, or lower cap, and lower as a result, all the franchise numbers come down. So it's about 16 million. The problem is that's 2 million more than he's making now, and they have to cut money. The other problem is right now, I think as we've seen, they do not have a quarterback. There's nobody on this team right now who you could look at next year and be like, yeah, I'd be comfortable with that dude being the quarterback again. Quarterbacks aren't cheap. So how are you going to go find a QB? Like at this point, there's no way they go out, and unless even if they lose the rest of their games, at 5 wins, you're not talking about a top draft pick, right? The Jets are still going to be way worse. You're not getting a number 1 pick. Can you assure? I mean, and you certainly could find a quarterback beyond number 1. You could find him at number 2 if you trade up into it. And actually having Trubisky as he really is number 2 in every sense of the word. But unless you go out and acquire a guy, what are you going to do? You're going to go get Cam Newton. You're going to go try to find somebody else out there and pay them a shit ton of money. Where is that? Who are you going to put around him at that point? Like there are so many problems on this roster right now that would be one thing if the salary cap remained the same and you had $25 million to work with, but they don't. This is the same thing we're seeing on the north side, except there is no salary cap in baseball, but you're looking at how do we fill a team with obvious holes in multiple spots, all of which actually require a lot of money. You generally don't get top-tier offensive linemen on the cheap. Those dudes, look at the contract David Bakhtiari just signed. You don't get elite linemen for the cheap. You don't get elite quarterbacks. You don't get mediocre quarterbacks for cheap. And there's 32 teams in the NFL. There are not 32 men on the planet capable of being a top quarterback in the NFL. That's the fact of it. So you get lucky when you find one of them, and that's what's incredible. There's just not. So good luck.
Which is really interesting.
Jimmy Grapes. Maybe Jimmy Garoppolo is available.
It's like, yeah. I mean, there are a number of failures that we're seeing here. One is, to me, Ryan Pace has absolutely got to go. He's made some very terrible signings, and he's done a good job on the defense. And great, if a team in the NFL was only about defense, then Pace is your guy. But offensively, he has failed miserably. The fact that he went into this season with this offensive line. Now, granted, there's been a couple of injuries. James Daniel. Being the one who it was a major injury, right? But other than that, I mean, we're pretty much playing with the line that was there. I mean, granted, there's been some COVID issues and things like that, but you got to get rid of Ryan Pace. He absolutely 100% has to go. And I think then at that point, you're going to have to get rid of Matt Nagy too. Although I would argue that, I mean, what is Matt Nagy supposed to do with this offensive line? I don't know that any coach out there could really be doing much of a better job. So it's really hard to assess his skill level and whether he's part of the problem or not. I mean, I think from what I hear from him as a manager of the team, as a kind of a leader, I like. But I think if Pace goes, then Nagy has to go. And then you have an even bigger problem, which is Mitchell Trubisky, who, if he's not your guy, then who's your guy? Is it Nick Foles? And that is not an option. And so, I mean, to me, it feels like you've got to re-sign Mitchell Trubisky. Oh. Oh my God. Welcome to Chicago sports. Not good. So it's not a lot of great options. It looks like Evan is frozen up here. So not a lot of great options for the Bears. Updates on injuries real quick. It looks like Nick Foles' injury not as severe as it was thought. So he is not going to go on the IR, according to Matt Nagy. Akeem Hicks suffered a strained right hamstring. I think that was pretty obvious the way he hopped off the field in the game last night. And Dwayne Harris waiting for confirmation that he sustained a torn triceps muscle. So that's probably not good news. And the Bears are going to have to figure out who they're going to get on the to return punts. And so Evans dropped off. Hopefully he'll join back in here in a minute. But with the injuries that the Bears are dealing with, Akeem Hicks obviously is a huge loss. I mean, when he left the game last night, you could really sense that Minnesota started moving the ball a lot better. And Kyle says that frozen Evan is epic reaction to the Bears. He was like, it was, yeah. We'll screenshot that for later and we'll put it up there so that Evan can see. Oh, he just texted me. Oh, his power just went out. This is, and this is what we talk about when we talk about really great production value. It's things like this. It's you don't get production value like this when you're messing around with like NBC or you know or any of the big boys, ESPN. No, you got to go to the small guys like Bears Insider to really get this epic production value. So the Bears will line up when they come back from the break. They're by. They've got the Green Bay Packers waiting for them on Sunday Night Football. So you'll have at least Thanksgiving will be out of the way. It really feels it'd be a stretch for me to think in any way, shape, or form that the Bears are going to have any chance coming out of, as we were saying earlier, what appears to be just kind of a halftime. Oh, and there, Evan's back. He's back.
Hello.
Evan went out.
Yeah, my power is out for some reason. As you can see, it's bright and sunny. It's not windy at all, but my power died. So
maybe that's a sign.
Yeah, I kind of feel like, I feel like the Bears. I was just, it was just
the power's out.
Better. I didn't get a chance to. I was about to go full.
You've got like a halo effect over your head too.
No, I'm gonna try to move to another spot. We'll see.
I like that though. It felt like you were an angel.
Yeah, little family pictures back here. I had to move upstairs because it's dark downstairs. I record in the basement, and that's not exactly the best spot when power goes out and it's dark. It's weird like that.
Weird. So yeah, we were talking about pace has to go, all that stuff. I kind of got past that, and now I'm talking about the fact that the Bears are playing the Green Bay Packers on Sunday after this prolonged halftime between what we'll call the bye week, but we refer to as a halftime because the Bears. Are you still there, Evan?
I am still here. Something is goofy with my stuff.
Okay, we can hear you, so it's good for the podcast.
Yeah.
And so, God, it's like at least the Bears aren't going to get walloped by the Packers to ruin our Thanksgiving. It's like Thanksgiving will be over. So we got that going for us.
Yeah. I mean, I'm glad that it's not the Thursday. Like, part of me though, I really wish they would just flex it out of the night game. So then maybe I
which they may
something during the day. I hope they will. I doubt it because it's such a big matchup. Actually, I really wish they would just play it as the early afternoon game on Thursday. I know they can't because then I could just eat a shit ton of turkey and fall asleep. Although,
and say you accidentally fell asleep.
Right? Oh, darn! I took a nap through that crap fest, but oh well.
Yeah, you got to feel like the Packers are. I mean, the good thing is that the Bears defense is going to match up well against the Packers offense. So you got to feel good about that. If Hakeem Hicks makes it back, he's got a strained hamstring. I haven't seen what the severity of that hamstring is. I'm not sure that they even know yet. But if he's back, then you feel good about the Bears defense, and Green Bay's offense, or Green Bay's defense, I should say, isn't really anything great, although neither was the Vikings. And, the Bears had 149 yards, total yards yesterday.
It's not great.
Just throwing that up. No, that's not great.
Not great.
So we'll see what happens. We're going to sign off here, and Evan's going to try to get his power working or something like that. But we'll see what happens. Either way, we'll probably maybe we'll do a show. Maybe we do like a Thanksgiving week show or something like that. Yeah. I don't know. We won't have any bad news, I don't think. So that could be good.
I hope not.
So we'll see. Just some injuries, and maybe we'll find out Mitchell Trubisky is going to be starting for the Bears. We'll find out, but we'll let you know either way. Until then, thanks for joining us.
See ya.